Welcome to a phenomenal edition of Rebellion's educational series. Today we're going to talk about Southwest Airlines, the future of travel, with the brilliant aviation CEO, Jessica Fisher. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on today.
Alex, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I absolutely love aviation and, treasure your opinion. So my first question is, Southwest Airlines, how did this major national carrier have a complete meltdown over the holiday season?
So I can speak to the outdated software model, and that's just a function of, keeping up systems, making sure that everything's cloud-based and backed up and running in several places at once, but also making sure that the human element is behind that. So what it seems to me is that just as systems fail, but there have to be checks where, if in case of an emergency, in case of a national disaster, anything that's online can also be, redone or done just as easily offline. And it seemed like that kind of seamlessness just wasn't there for them.
Yeah, it was amazing seeing the pictures of thousands of passengers stranded, and that's been a contributor to the rise of charter aviation. I think the data you sent me was something like a doubling of U.S. volume.
Yeah, so what we have seen, so it's really interesting. Our friends over at Argus sent us this data. Since if you look at data from 2015 or 2012 versus today, let's just take November and December charter activity in North America. Charter North America saw about 187,000 charter flights take off this year. Those are Part 135 flights between November to December of 2022. If you look back to 2015 and 2012, before really those, I would say, serious technology and technology with the capability to build network effects and really move the ball forward in terms of communication and building awareness existed. 2015 saw about 120 charter flights fly in that time period. 2012 saw only about 100,000 charter flights. That's almost a doubling of activity in 10 years. So we haven't seen those kind of advancements in airplanes yet. The eVTOLs are not online. They likely won't be until 2025, 2026. So to see that number really double in a decade where, yes, you've seen VLJs introduced in that time, but where you haven't seen such a structural change in jets, to me is unbelievable. And it is a function, it is in large part a function of technology and computerization and network effects within the industry.
So can you just not start an airline anymore without a major investment in software, one that rivals your investment in actual airplanes?
Can you repeat the question, Alex?
Can you start an aviation company today without allocating a major portion of your expenditures to software, something that's even going to be comparable to buying 757s?
No, you can't. You need technology because technology is what creates efficiencies. And whether it's pilot and crew scheduling, whether it's making sure that you're running on efficient routes, technology also promotes awareness. Where am I picking up passengers? How am I optimizing revenue and making sure that I'm not just flying to, places where the passengers are not looking to go. And I think that, so when it comes to scheduling software, when it comes to back-end systems development, when it comes to managing human resources, technology really is a critical part of any aviation operation. But also the back-end, the human element has to be there as well to support the system and to function 100% in cases where, technology may not be accessible.
I've seen the prices have absolutely exploded in charter. The per hour for turboprop used to be 2,400. Now it's over 6,000. What do you attribute to such a rise in expense per hour for private flight?
Yeah, so it's funny. Our friend Doug Golan over at Private Jet Card Comparisons puts out great research on this. And what we've seen is since the end of the CARES Act at the end of 2020, granted, at that time, federal excise tax, which is 7.5% of the transaction, went away. We've seen turboprops, light jets, mid-sized jets, super mids, increase in price by about between 30 and 40% from the end of 2020 until now, which is super interesting. Prices are coming off a bit this year, but increases from $6,000 an hour to $9,000 plus for a mid-sized jet card. That's, again, we haven't seen any major change in the industry that's really driving. It's an increase in demand, which is again attributable to technology. But in response to those demands, it seems like we're not seeing technology deliver the systems that enable flyers to book effectively in order to defray costs. And I could get into that. I know you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, no,
that really seems like what we need.
You're the CEO of an aviation booking platform, one that seeks to lower the overall expense for the buyer of private hours. So you think your software can significantly reduce expense and time for the consumer?
I do. I think our goal at FLYJETS, we just launched our mobile app, which I know that you saw, at the end of this past year, and something we're trying to put together as a fly calendar. So the ways that we look to save people money, our app is designed to connect flyers and aircraft providers in a seamless way and kind of create a seamless, efficient booking process, right? Rather than calling and getting quotes, spending hours at a time, or being locked into a specific aircraft operator, we're looking to make it easy for a user to say, here are, let's say anywhere in the world, but let's use North America as an example. There are 5,000 aircraft that I'd be interested in flying in North America. Which are most efficiently positioned so that I'm paying the best rate, given that the aircraft that I want, I'm looking for an aircraft that's closest to me, has the least reroute time, and I'm able to compare aircraft within a landscape rather than just seeing, rather than just dealing with a pool of, let's call it 3 or 4, if someone's looking for a super mid-size aircraft. So by providing that bird's eye view of the landscape, we're looking to really do 2 things: increase utility by saving people money, and decrease the time spent getting from point A to B, and on the booking process. If we could take a multiple hour-long booking process that currently exists and make that, let's call it 5 minutes to a half hour long for people, I think we did a good deed. The other way that we look to build efficiencies and save money for flyers, it's really about gaining flyer volume, right? Because one thing we do is we create empty leg splits, which means oftentimes when an aircraft flies from point A to B, let's say Teterboro to Opelika, because that's a major route for us, the trip is priced as a round trip, even when it's a one-way, because the operator has to bake into the initial price the cost of potentially flying home empty without passengers. What we try to do is say, okay, we have Jessica going down to Florida on Monday. Alex wants to come home to New York from Florida on Sunday. Hey guys, can we make a match between you two and create an empty leg? That off the bat, that saves 40 to 50% for each flyer. So with, again, that's just a volume game. And that's something we're trying to promote with the Fly Calendar by saying, hey, come, subscribe to the Fly Calendar, give us your empty legs for the year so we can find pairs and matches and create efficiencies, even if it's not an outright empty leg, an efficient route with someone, which we're just using flyer volume to gauge. Another way that we save flyers money, we can also outsource empty legs, is trying to promote group booking. Again, if Alex and I fly together, each of us save 50% of the cost. This isn't rocket science, but all of these mechanisms require volume, which is driven by technology and network effects. And that's really what we're here to do. And it's definitely a way to combat rising costs in the industry.
Well, getting back to Southwest, the original point, do you think their brand will suffer, or do you think it won't matter over time?
I think that it depends what kind of recovery they could stage. If they could show that there's a complete turnaround, that they're making better, they're making good with their customers, they're turning around their systems, and that they're really making good on doing the right thing, great. If not, their brand will suffer.
Speaking of brands, how about the #1 brand in your private industry, NetJets? Are they someone who's going to consider, offering some of their calendar, some of their empty legs to you, or is that something you've approached?
All I can say is I certainly hope so.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a lot of fun talking today, Jess, and have a wonderful 2023.
Bye, Alex. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.